summary of the novel, and then we will see the character list. Okay, so it will be easy for you. So here the story revolves around the female protagonist Indu, as I have already mentioned, and uses the first person narrative. The story foregrounds the dynamics in an Indian Brahmin joint family and all its conflicts, compromises, and peculiarities. Indu's mother dies at childbirth, and her father Govind, a photographer, leaves her in the care of his old aunt Akka and his brother Kaka. For Indu, real name Anand. For this is she is describing the novel. She is narrating the novel from the first person point of view. So basically, every names, everything is from her point of view. For example, Anand is the real name of her uncle, basically her father's brother, but she calls him Kaka. Okay, Kaka, who live in their ancestral home. Now, Akka is the matriarch. So, Akka is basically her father's old aunt, and then she is the matriarch and rules the house with a very strict lady, very rigid woman. Okay, apart from Anand and Govind, Govind is the brother, is the father of uh, Indu, and Anand is his brother. There is Atya. Atya is her near name is Narmada, and she is the widow sister of both of these. That's Anand and Govind. Basically, aunt of Indu. Okay, she is the one who took care of Indu when she was a child. Then Sunanda as another sister. Narmada Atya is the widowed sister. Her husband has already passed out. So passed away. So here we can see that she is a widowed woman. She's a widow. Now Sunanda is another sister and two more brothers, Madhav and Vinayak. So it's a joint family with their wives and kids. Basically, here this house is they have a joint family system. Indu grows up as a rebellious and pugnacious kid who wants to do things according to her fancy and understanding. She finally succeeds in her endeavor when she leaves the house at age of 18, when Akka passed a derogatory remark on her late mother. So, Indu's mother has already passed away, and then that is the reason why she was left in care of Govind is her father. Okay, so of his old aunt Akka and his brother Kaka. And now when she is a very rebellious kind of child. When so she became very angry, agitated when Akka passed some kind of unpleasant remarks about her late mother, and later marries a man of her choice, Jayant. So she went to another place. That is, Indu went to another place, and then she completed her education, and finally she married a person, that is Jayant, out of her caste. She is from a Brahmin family, so she breaks the tradition and went on to marry another man, from another caste, that is Jayant. Okay, now she works as a writer in a magazine, but wishes to take up a different form of writing which would satiate the novelist inside of her. She is a doting wife and almost a dutiful and self-effacing as the domesticated housewives she always resented. Even though she married Giant by her choice, finally she has reached the same situation, the same condition of every Indian woman. That is, she also became a wife, and then she is doing all the household chores and that kind of things, even though she has succeeded in achieving a job as a writer in a magazine. Okay, now she hides her dependence on Jayant, and the hypocrisy of her emotions and actions builds a stream of angst and guilt inside of her. Actually, she was a rebellious person, but gradually she slipped into that same routine of womanhood in Indian scenario, and she hides, actually she is a hypocrite. She hides her dependence on Giant. Now she left the ancestral home when she was 18 years, and at the age of 29, after 10 years, she returns to her family house as Akka is on her deathbed. Okay, now Akka has fallen sick and she is in her deathbed. The fact that two had not spoken for 10 years and never really saw eye to eye, you know that as Hindu, she breaks out of these traditions and rules. She went on and married another woman, another man. So naturally, Akka was really angry with her, and for last 10 days they never spoke with each other. Indu is surprised when she learns that Akka wants to bequeath all her property and wealth to her, but it was a shock. That is, Akka on her deathbed says that she wants to give. She has bestowed all her property to the Indo, even though she left home 10 years back. She hides the information from the rest of the family up until her final rites when the probate lawyer Shyama Rao reads Akka's will to the entire family. They all are shocked to see that Indu, a familial pariah, was given everything. Indu's cousin Padmini or Mini is supposed to get married, and Akka promised to pay for it. Before her death, promised she had promised to fund in those cousins' marriage, that is Padmini's marriage, for the fund for Padmini's marriage. But actually, she passed away, so she is already dead. So, Indu feels obligated to honor the said promise. As for the house, apart from Kaka and Atya, everyone wants to be sold and receive their own share of the spoils. So only Kaka and Atya, these are the two people who wants to retain the home, but all others they need their share. They demanded their share. As all this while, Indu is distressed about her relationship with Jayant, as he restricts her attachment with her. Uh, as he restricts her attachment with her, his attachment with her to some placid and dispassionate letters. In her desperation, she even commits adultery with one of her cousins and close friend Naren, who is the only grandson of the old uncle, that is cousin of Akka. Okay, so Naren is the person with whom she had an affair, and then it was because she was in a desperation. Naren is a self indulgent and carefree vagabond who was never accepted by the family. He was orphaned in childhood, just like Indu, and only has his grandfather to call his own. In the end, Naren succumbs to his private devils and commits suicide. The family is distraught over the tragedy, especially the old uncle, his father, and Indu. Both of them were shot. All others considered him as a vagabond, so they were not concerned about his death. But both of them, that is his grandfather and Indu, was completely they were shocked. She even learns about the tragic life story of Akka, that is Narmada, from Atya. Atya, her aunt, she describes how Akka, as a 12-year-old bride, that is the tragic life story of Akka, as a 12-year-old bride, abusive marriage, her husband's concubine, and widowhood. So, actually, even though we may first of all, when we start reading this novel, we can find that we may loathe this woman Akka, because she is such a strict, very traditional kind of woman who is very strict about all everything, each and everything. She interferes in each and every decisions of every members of that family. But actually, she was a victim of patriarchy. She was a child bride, and then later on, her husband was a cruel man who treated her badly. She never was able to conceive a child, and that is the reason why she was treated really badly by her mother-in-law. Plus, her husband started an affair with another woman, and after going through all these tragedies, all these painful experiences, she emerged. Actually, Akka emerged as a strong woman, and she became a dispassionate or completely, detached with the other family. But she never showed any sympathy towards others. But actually, she was a victim of all these kind of things. by herself. Okay, she was already a victim of all these conditions. Now she decides to fund Minnie's marriage and to sell the house and give everyone their share. That was her decision. Indu's decision was to fund Minnie's marriage as promised by Akka, and she was ready to sell this house and give everyone's share to Shankarpa. That is the person who bought this house. Kaka and Kaki lives with Hemant, one of their children, and then Atya decides to go with Indu and Jayant because she is a widow and she has no children. So basically, she decides to stick on with Indu and Jayant. Indu also decides to return to Jayant, her husband, and confess her infidelity with Naren. So she wants to confess the truth to her husband. She hopes that their relationship can withstand the trial of such scorching honesty, and even if it doesn't, she would find peace in the confession of her sin. So she thought that it would be better to confess the sin that she committed to her husband, so that either he may be all right with that, otherwise she will get at least a piece of mind. She will get a she can live peacefully. That was her decision. In the end, Indu finds her roots in her home with Giant and emerges out of her shadows with more clarity of her own self. So this is the summary of this novel, Roots and Shadows.